his hand. I can't do it. I can pretend to be writing, but I can't do the blackboard.
Also, do you need tips for young actors starting out?
Go on, help.
Or advice?
Well, Olivia's, of course, is perfect, isn't it? In other words, be fit, one, of the body of a god, is what he meant, be fit. Have the full vocal range of a full orchestra, again, Olivia. Read. Don't rely entirely on reading alone. Go to as many people who are experts in their field on Greeks, drama, modern drama, and don't be disheartened
Do you ever,
when you don't work in it.
do you ever analyze other people's performance?
Yes. My favorite actor is Robert De Niro, and I've seen Raging Bull 5 times, Deer Hunter 3. There's another recent one, Awakenings, where, again, another brilliant performance. And I go back usually the second time to find out how on earth they've done it. And we've got another great hero in this country. And I'm the last person, I like my kind of acting least, because I can see me acting. What I absolutely love is when you get someone like Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves, and I can't see where he starts and where he ends. His acting is seamless. I think he's absolutely brilliant in that film.
Any other questions?
Peripherally related to acting, with the dyslexia, from one dyslexic to another, how do you go about preparing? Do you have an assistant that helps you out with the scripts, or how do you actually overcome the handicap to do what you do?
It takes longer. My wife is dyslexic too, and my daughter's.
How are the kids?
A little bit into your personal life, Mr. Brown. You have how many children? All
3,
done?
Caleb, David, and Rebecca. Okay.
How old are
Older than me because they're so much wiser. 34, 32, 28.
I do.
Caleb and Rebecca are a legacy from my late wife. And aren't I lucky?
Of all the, it's a two-part question. In the canon, is there any favorite or several favorite stories? And then of all the films that you've done so far, do you have particular favorites?
I think one of the films that I'm proudest of, it's largely the directors, you know, they're the ones that really do it. Hitchcock used to have every single picture in his mind before he started shooting. So does Peter Hammond. And I think probably The Abbey Grange is one of our finest films. I like it particularly because Croucher's let off at the end. I love it when Holmes does that. The reason I like The Dancing Man so much is because you see Holmes failing. Hubert is dead by the time he arrives. And that's moving and interesting. I guess that appeals to me because I've always found Holmes a little bit too good to be true. So when he fails, it's interesting to me. I suppose probably one of his greatest sweeps was The Silent Fall. I think that's an incredible story. And I think we did it about 3/4 justice. We couldn't afford to go to India, so we had to go to Malta. But that's the way it is. And I think that's a fairly remarkable story. I also very much like the relation between Watson and Holmes in that, in the beginning of that story. I have to say the Blue Carbuncle because it is one of the finest bits of deduction that he does. When he has the hat, and from the hat he deduces the man who then walks in. And it's exactly as Holmes described it. So that I like. I love it when the deduction is as strong as that. I think the children love that too, particularly. I'd like to reshoot The Crooked Man, probably. But there we go.
No one has asked you the main question here this evening, and that is, what do you really want to buy Irene?
Well, I'm happy to say that I've just told you about my first kiss, which I was so thrilled about, and I was so excited about. I took my toothbrush to rehearsal. And, I mean, Irene is the woman. But at the same time, I guess it's because, well, in filming that, you see, I think that Doyle didn't quite realize what he'd done. Because the wonderful woman who played my Irene Adler, Gail Honeycutt, from Texas, and she's meant to be from New Jersey, and she's a great opera star. And in the scene where Holmes is in disguise as the priest, and he's pretending to be knocked down and wounded to get into the house, she has to bandage Holmes's head. What Doyle didn't realize, of course, when you start doing it, is that this particular lady, in this particular period, was very décolletage. And she was wearing an unbelievably beautiful scent called Bluebell by Penhaligon. And as I was being bandaged, I saw the heart of Texas. And Holmes was nearer to it than ever before. And this wonderful scent. So that's my idea of why she became the woman. Also, she beat him.
Oh, yes.
We'll take 2 more questions, and then we'll have about 15 minutes. If there's some people here who want some autographs, we'll do it in an orderly fashion, one at a time, if you would, please. Does anybody have a couple final questions, then we're going to close out the question and answer.
Yes, I was wondering if you could tell us something about some of your other film work, other than My Fair Lady and comedy that you did for PBS, I believe, 2 years ago. I haven't seen you in anything but Sherlock Holmes, and I was wondering if there was, you could enlighten us with maybe something possibly on video in America, or just...
I think you can find My Macbeth. I did it with Piper Laurie, and I've heard that's on video, which I made in 1980. I think you can find War and Peace, when I play Audrey Hepburn's elder brother in that film with Henry Fonda. Madam X with Tuesday World. I think that's out on video. In England, or maybe you could get The Good Soldier, The Ford Madox Ford, if you write to WGBH. I don't know whether that's out on video yet or not. I made that in 1979. The list begins to look a little paltry out there. I can offer my James Jocelyn cosmetics in The Incredible Hulk. I was a guest star on Heart to Heart with Stephanie and RJ. I played the villain in The Young Daniel Boone in Knoxville, Tennessee. There's more, but I think it gets worse.
Anybody have a final question? close out session.
I was wondering if you were aware of the theory that alludes to Holmes's homosexuality, what would you think about that?
Well, I had a wonderful moment in 1985 when my previous Watson, David Byrne, was with me. And we were asked that question. He went, well, we're not. I don't think so. I mean, if it cheers the gays up, I'm thrilled. I mean, why not? It seems to be improbable. I mean, I just don't think that... Can you imagine the stench of tobacco? I just don't think... How can you kiss with a pipe in your mouth? I don't think so. You?
I don't know.
No, it's never crossed my mind. I'm sure it's never crossed Edward Hardwick's mind.
Close out the questions and answers. We'll have about 15 minutes for autographs. I would ask that you come up one at a time, single file if possible, and we'll try to get to as many people. We won't get to everybody, but we'll try to get to
Trevor Crossman is my guardian angel. I got two of them, actually.
Please keep your seats. Please keep your seats.
Okay, that's fine.
It's only 3:30 as we stand up.
We're doing it a row at a time.
My battery ran out.
Where'd you get that one? I already know.
We're the same, it's just a hardback. No, this is the first.
Jason,
I was, yes, having dinner with a friend that night. We spoke and I said I was coming to a meeting. The next meeting I kept looking at you and I said, well, he's not wearing his sweatsuit. So it was hard for me to remember. Remember? Yeah. So I think I'll be seeing you next week on Friday, right? Yes, they did. I didn't think that one of this week on Friday. I remembered I've got it planned.
It is. It's really convenient.
Oh, he looks like a very complex man to me. And he's remarried now, isn't he? Yes. Not, I thought you said he had a third. How about the third child that he talks about? There was another child and he said two and then. Oh, could be.
Jim.
Intermission. I can't
Is that the
find
one I picked up?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you got it?
No, I didn't take it. I didn't know who it was. Unless I stole my shirt, I got it after I left. Oh, she's there.
Take that. I'm going to be writing a report.
Oh, great. How do we get that?
The one that comes out next.
I mean, where do we...
Oh, I'll give you. I'll get you.
Okay, let me
Couple
go.
of them. I didn't unhook it because I don't know how, but I just heard it.
don't get to see it, and I can. Nice seeing you. Nice meeting
And she created mystery. Well, I think I should start by saying why I'm here. I've been asked by Mobile, and in particular St. Peter A. Spina, to promote public television in America. It was very near to my heart for many years, due to the fact that my wife was one of the founder members of it. Her name was, God rest her soul, Joan Wilson. And she created Mystery Theatre and sustained Masterpiece Theatre for 10 years before she died, and also created Classic Theatre. She also built a delicate bridge between our two countries. And many of the things that you've seen on your public television is because she very sweetly came to England, not only found me, but also found some of our best drama and some of our best writing, and met them all, and hence their works being shown on your Channel 9. I'm also here because she left me a legacy of two beautiful children, Caleb and Rebecca. And I have a son of my own called David. My name is Jeremy Brett, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may wish to ask. Yes?
What is your favorite story?
Do you know, every time I'm asked that, I jump, because I've got so many. I do like the Blue Carbuncle because of the deduction, you know, from the hat. And then in walks the man, it's exactly as Holmes deduced. I like the Dancing Men. I think the puzzlement of those little figures, which of course makes Holmes late. So Cupid is already dead by the time he arrives, which means Holmes has not been as quick as he usually is. I rather like that story. I like Abe Slaney, coming in all the way from Chicago. What else? The Devil's Foot. I rather like that one. I think Holmes is quite daring to have a go at the drug himself. I buried the syringe in that film. I asked Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's daughter, Jean, who's still alive and very much alive, if her father would be upset if I buried the syringe, to say to everybody that it's not such a frightfully good idea. And she said, oh, I think my father would be so relieved. So that's why I buried the syringe in that. I also called Watson John. And I also asked permission of her if I could do that. Those three. Any questions? Yes.
Are you planning to bring your plays to audience on a tour of the States?
Yes, 93. I asked St. Peter and David Plowright, my chairman of the Granada Studios, if they would mind what they would say if I was to say that I was prepared to complete the canon. And they said that I have their blessing, so I'm going to do that first. That will take a while. I think I still have 22 to go. 34 done, 22 to go. So they're very sweet to me because they give me lots of breaks, like gaps, and I can go off. And I will do the play in one of those gaps. I think we're booked in for 93 in the States.
Is there any chance you would come to Indianapolis?
Have play, will travel, yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
I was watching the series Lodge last night, and it seemed kind of a strange, kind of dark, play. I really liked the play between you and the man who played Professor
Freddie Jones.
I've seen him in some things before.
He's quite a character, isn't he?
Yes. I was just wondering if there's any stories or anything you remember about things that happened.
Yes, I can remember one vividly. He, just before the take in the house, when I did that deduction, I ransacked the house.
Yeah.
A naughty moment, I'm sorry.
Especially sitting on the floor with the
Yes,
air.
I know, with all the ash. I'm sorry about that. That happens occasionally when I suddenly think the film needs a boost. And Peter Hammond, my director, said, isn't there going to be anything in this set left? It was actually a real house. And Freddie Jones was standing there eating sugar babies. And, of course, some were green, some were orange, some were red. And so his tongue went orange and green and red. And I said, listen, before we do the shot, can you tell me which color you're going to suck? Because otherwise I'm going to be thrown for a loop. And he said, and I said, perhaps, could I have one? He said, nope. Anyway, I can't remember which color his tongue was on the tape, but I was ready for it anyway. Orange, it was orange. This is quite an event. He drinks black velvet, which is champagne and Guinness, and eats hardly at all. And he used to say, I'm joining you for dinner. I said, lovely, Freddie, lovely. And then he'd say, Tapster! Right across this hotel. His dinner was Guinness and champagne. Yes?
Out of all the wonderful stories that were written, how did the ones that were filmed come to be like?
Well, that is to do, of course, with my brilliant studio. I came in very late, Mr. Limbaugh. The whole idea of these films was to put literature straight in regard to Watson. That was the whole idea, so that we could see Watson as the best friend that any man has ever had and not the buffoon. That was the first premise for doing the films at all. Then, I think they chose some of the best, because we were only going to do 6. We've now done 34 and we're sold to 83 countries, so look what's happened. I think that probably they gave me the Solitary Cyclist first to get me muscled up. We didn't start with the beginning of the Strand magazine, of course, which is a scandal in Bohemia, because it's a fairly complicated one, and Holmes has 2 disguises. And I apologize for my performance in that film, because I just discovered by reading and reading again that Holmes laughed, that he actually laughed. So I laughed too much out of sheer relief. Yes, sir.
The sets are astonishing. The recreation of 1895 to 1900 is just beyond belief. Could you go into that a little bit? I'm just amazed at how well those work.
Well, then we have to talk about our researcher, David Round. We also have to talk about Michael Grimes, who designed and created the Baker Street set with that amazing piece of irony that Reichenbach falls over the mantelpiece, his own personal touch. I think that we also were very lucky because we are shooting in the north of England, in the northwest, where there aren't so many modern buildings, and sometimes we can even find Victorian street lamps. In London, when we've shot, we usually have to hide fire hydrants and yellow lines, but in the north you can still find some Victorian England. And many of our sets are real homes. We move into a house or a hall, and take over the house and use it as, for example, in The Dancing Man, which was Leighton Hall in the Lake District. And all the scenes of the interior of Kubrick's house were actual fact Leighton Hall, the kitchen. Amazing designers, amazing researchers, I agree. I think that probably the most exciting thing about it is the detail. If you want to see Victorian England, you can see it encapsulated. Of course we've made the odd mistake, but that's only human. But not many, I don't think. Their research is absolutely utter. Their research is utter. I mean, we're very lucky, for example, when we were shooting The Silent Fall, because Big Ben had been wrapped up in swaddling clothes while it was being cleaned. And they came off just in time for our shoot. But we panned down, the statue of Baudelaire was not there in 1895. That's the odd slip we made, but not too many.
Mr. Brett, sir, let me say that you are the quintessential Sherlock Holmes as far as I am. Some of my friends are concerned. I'd like to ask you about the almost antagonistic relationship, that of Holmes towards Watson, for instance, in The Solitary Cyclist, when Watson does not perform to Holmes' expectations, and that the antagonism or the aggressive nature of Holmes toward Watson's fumbling is obvious.
Oh, yes, you mean on the doorstep? Right. Well, of course, it's Doyle. Maybe I said it a bit briskly. I don't know. It's Doyle. What is their relationship? I mean, you tell me. I really don't know. I know that.
Reminds me of my marriage all too often. Reminds me of my marriage all too often.
Well, this is a very odd marriage. It's the odd couple. I think that Holmes really doesn't need Watson. I think that's what Doyle meant. I think, they shared for the rent. Stanford introduced them and they shared for the rent. And also it helps to tell a story if there are two people. I mean, Doyle had to have someone else other than Watson, because Watson is the writer. He's telling the story. What their relationship is an enigma. I don't know. I need Watson desperately. I mean, Jeremy. I mean, I'd be lost without a best friend. I had to keep myself under wraps quite a lot when I played Holmes. There are some delicious things about playing him, like he's incredibly rude. I mean, when he doesn't shake the King of Bohemia's hand, I find that very funny. Because, of course, he's a Bohemian. He's not interested in whether he's a king or a peasant. And he doesn't like the king. Doesn't like his ethics. So he leaves him. And he can be in the middle of a conversation. His mind's changed, so he leaves the person he's talking to. That's quite fun, because we're all so well-mannered, So playing someone who looks, I don't think Holmes knows that he's being rude, but it's quite fun to act. Does that answer the question? I can't remember what the question was. Hello?
I just wanted to say, I saw you on Approval, and I love that. I think this is the start of the I saw, and I'd seen you doing Sherlock Holmes before, so it was such a contrast to see you do a character. Is there any chance that might be coming back again on Masterpiece?
I expect so. I tell you what, it's just been honoured by the fact that it's Alistair Cook's favourite masterpiece film. So that's a flying start. I'm allowed out to play sometimes and do comedy and other things. I don't really want to while I'm trying to get this as right as I can. But I have been able to do another Freddie Lonsdale's play on Broadway in '85, Aunt Will. And also, of course, The Secret of Sherlock Holmes, which was all Doyle. It was just a 100th birthday celebration for Holmes, to which Dame Jean Conan Doyle came, which was a great honour. And she said that I was the Sherlock Holmes of her childhood, which meant more to me than anything. Only the play. I don't think she liked me so much in the films.
That was good. You had that dream where Professor Moriarty was running after you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was the wallet with the child inside of it?
That was in my director's head. I fulfilled his fantasy. I think it was me as a boy. I mean, Holmes is the boy.
Now, for instance, with the new series, how do you prepare for this role? Do you read the script and then go back and read Doyle first, or do you read Doyle first, or do you not do that at all, or how do you get into those?
Well, once you've picked up Doyle in your life, you're Doyled for life. In trying to become Holmes is the hard part. And of course, you have to become, in England we call it becoming. In Russia they call it Stanislavski method, and here you call it the method, which isn't the same thing. But what it means is, it's quite simple. Supposing I'm a sponge, and I just squeeze my own liquid out and draw in the liquid of the character I'm playing. And in this case, of course, it's more complicated, because Doyle's genius is almost impossible to reach. I once described it as trying to climb a monument. It is like Everest and the Eiger on end. It's such an incredible journey. Holmes Peak, I see written on your shirt. You've obviously reached it, sir. Good.
So do you go back and read the original script?
Yeah, I didn't bring it with me this time because I'm traveling light. But I normally have it with me all the time, especially when I'm working. And I'm a very big, great bore because I have it when the adapters always do their thing. And they go, adapter, of course, has his own ego and has to put his number on it. And what I try and persuade them to do is to come back to Doyle. And that takes a week. And then I have a second week to work with my fellow actors, and then we commit to film. Commit is the true word, because once you've done it, you can't withdraw it. Fascinating but terrifying. So,
How do you handle the stress of the show, since so much of it rests on your shoulders? And tell us how you had to fight for the right dialogue in the scripts.
well, I was born, I suppose, with broad shoulders. My father was a very famous soldier in the First World War and the Second. So I expect I developed somebody's chin, as I call it, cheek or whatever. I have to, I suppose I'm known really as a very irritating actor because I keep on complaining, because I keep on wanting to do the stories, because unbelievably they've not been done before, and I don't understand that. They've done derivatives. Even the great Basil Rathbone, only the Hunt of the Baskervilles. And even that he popped in a disguise that wasn't there. And I don't know why. I don't know why, but at least it gave me something to do. Daunted, yes, deeply. I remember once I was fighting for Doyle in the film called The Story of the Crooked Man, and it had gone so far away. And I'd gone off to the Lake District, having just finished The Dancing Men, where we were filming, and brought it as near to Doyle as I can in my humble way, just lifting Doyle and bringing him into the... And all the big guns were brought in on me. And I was told to behave myself. And I said, well, if you cut the mongoose and the canary, then you've missed the point of the whole story. And I said, what is more frightening, this is 1983, I said, what is more frightening, you'll lose my interest. And we then went in, and they all went away, except my director, And he said, do you have that script you've been working on? Have you got the book there? So we got it back a bit. But it was always because no one had done it before. They thought, well, there must be a reason that no one's done it before, therefore it's not possible to do it. And I mean, perfectly logical conclusion. And only when we did The Dancing Men, it was the first scene in The Dancing Men of Holmes when he's doing the Thorsten thumb billiards. And he deduces that Watson has been playing billiards. And I said, if I can learn it in time, can I please lift it straight from the printed page of Doyle? Can I try it? So they said yes. And it's in. And that was the breakthrough. We had to wait 3 months until, of course, it was cut together, and the brilliant Patrick Gars, our genius of a composer, composed his music. And they saw it. And they then we all began to get more confidence. My producer, Michael Cox, who stood by me through thick and thin, also suggested the Paget drawings. And in our country, we have commercials, because it's on a commercial channel, so every time we have a commercial, we end on a Paget drawing. And that was wonderful because people said, well, where do these wonderful drawings come from? And people who hadn't read the canon started to read the canon, first of all to see the pictures, and then got caught up in Doyle. Yes.
I wonder if you ever have done, or if you would ever do this, where you have an audience, something like this, that has a lot of background in the canon, and then slip into the role of Holmes and let them become the sort of a Victorian press conference situation where they ask you about the cases, and you would comment about and answer questions from the...
I tell you what is incredibly difficult, and that is, it takes me 2 hours to prepare to play. We start filming at 7. I'm always up at 5. The first hour is preparation, my yoga, my meditation, my prayers. I then go to the makeup chair. My makeup takes an hour. And during that time, I become him. And what I have to remember is, of course, to take him off in the evening. So I have to rush back to my hotel, have a shower, and wash him off, and wear a cheerful colour, probably. Certainly have a glass of champagne, and put him completely out of my mind, because he's quite a powerful creature to become, person to become. So unfortunately, I can't put him on and off, and I am on holiday. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Paget drawings before, and in the first series, they were almost like in the stories themselves. You would see the recreation of the drawings. Will that come back in the later?
Well, the truth is we run out of Paget drawings.
So
Although we've gone into the part where he didn't draw for Doyle. And so there's a very fine artist in Manchester who is trying to do Doylean Paget lookalikes-ish. Very effectively, I think. I had a fascinating thought. You know that Sidney Paget was not Doyle's choice. It was his brother. And the wrong brother replied. If the other brother had replied, I wouldn't be playing Holmes at all. Nor would Basil Rathbone, because he was a short man. He was also rather like, I think, in look to Al Pacino, because he did that wonderful drawing of the front of Punch, the other brother, didn't he? So, by a whimsical moment of the wrong brother replying, and I'm not sure that Doyle was always pleased with the Paget drawings, the Sidney Paget ones. I think he thought he'd made him too handsome. So, Thank God the wrong brother picked up the package, otherwise I'd be out of work. Yes.
Do you think there are any of the Granada interpretations that may have actually improved upon the original Doyle stories? I'm thinking in terms of organization and how on some of the programs that I've seen, things are in a different order where you might see the crime happen first and then go to Holmes and Watson as Baker Street.
I think in moments like The Greek Interpreter, when they added the train chase at the end, because that story does end abruptly, I think it's a good idea, not a bad idea, especially for film. It's quite thrilling too. You have to be very careful. You see, when you take on the work of this brilliant man, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, you must remember it is better read, one. Two, if you're going to change anything, you better be very careful what you do, because it can upset Doyleans, we call them in England Sherlockians. I mean, I'm talking about the aficionados, who really know every detail. I mean, my favorite aficionado is Solomon, who's 3, and he lives in Dallas, Texas. He's 6 now. When I met him, he was 3. And you can't let people down. He loves his Doyle, and he knows every little hiccup that we've made. We've also had to leave things out because you can't put everything in, and then it's the question of you have to select which bits you're going to put in and which bits you're not going to put in. I'm not too sure that I'm too happy about what, I'm not going to go into it, but there's many, many, many things that I think. I was terribly upset about Nick when they cut my Rose speech in the Naval Treaty. And they said it won't hold. So, of course, when I did the play, I put it in its entirety. That isn't really in my hands. You must remember, I'm just employed, but I'm a pushy. Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering if your experience, you talked about the point of the series was to put Watson right. And I was wondering if your experience in playing Watson on the stage gave you some insight into the character of Holmes.
Yes, that was a bit of luck, really. That really was a bit of luck. I was doing a film called The Good Soldier by Ford Maddox Ford in England. It's a wonderful American novel about an American in England. And I think you've had it on Masterpiece, haven't you? And suddenly I was rung up by Los Angeles, by the Armistead Theatre, and they said, could I leave the film because I had a gap and pop over and do Watson opposite Charlton Heston? And in the circumstances, although we weren't doing, unfortunately, Doyle, we were doing The Crucible of Blood, which is based on The Silent Fall, and Paul Giovanni had taken a great deal of liberties, and I did find it interesting because I learned how difficult it is for Watson. You see, I wish Edward Harding was here to answer this. You have to create, if you're going to be foolish enough to do it on the stage or on film. Because as I say, it's better read. You have to create dialogue for Watson, because it's written in the first person. And I found that I was standing around an awful lot until I said to Paul Giovanni, what am I doing on stage? So he wrote this some time. Yes, I learned how hard it is to play Watson straight. To be funny is easy, but to play him straight. And I think it's easier on stage than it is on film, funnily enough, because on film, and I felt this very much with Edward and with my darling friend David Berg, on stage the eye can look at whoever they choose. On film it chooses. And I said, listen, you really must film all Watson's silences, all his listenings. But of course there's never time. And I think it's been very tough on many Watsons, because Holmes is such a silver streak of light. I mean, he's a magnesium flame on a tightrope. And Watson's a human being. So it's difficult. Yes.
In Reichenbach, whenever you and your reporter were fighting on top of was there anything that would keep you from falling off?
Well, I'll tell you exactly. I don't know your name. Doug Reed? Doug. Nice to know you, Doug. Well, we went, of course, to Reichenbach. And they released all the pressure that was built up because the hydro. And the Reichenbach was released in all its tonnage of water. And it's freezing water because it comes from the Eiger, a mountain behind. And on that particular day, I said, Eric, how much do you weigh? He said 13.2, which is about, what's that? 13 stones, 14 times 13, what's that? I'm not a mathematician. Anyway, a lot. And when soaked, another 20 pounds. And I had to pick him up. And I remember saying, please God, don't let my back go out at this moment. And the actual fall, I was locked in the hotel and my stuntman didn't, because I said, you're not to kill them. And they said, Jeremy, if you're going to be a nuisance again, you'll have to be locked up. So I was locked up in the hotel. And they did come back in one piece, thank God. But I mean, what a stunt. I mean, free fall for 300 feet. I mean, it's just terrifying. And they lived. I just hope they got paid enough.
And when you went back to do the empty house, did you film that before you left the scene? Or did you go back and do it?
No, the empty house came later. You see, I was quite careless. I lost my Watson. And my darling David Burke had a beautiful son called Tom. He was 2. And he said, Jeremy, I'm sorry, but my wife is finding very heavy going. Tom is quite a handful. I'm going to have to go back and look after my boy. Will you be all right? And I said, all right. This is all very English, you know. And so off he went, and I thought, what am I going to do now? I've got a Watson. And Ted came round the corner. And so we started with Ted. But we didn't start with the empty house with Ted. We finished the final problem. The first one we did to give Ted a leeway in was the empty house. And with all his impeccable taste and elegance, he's Sir Cedric Hardwicke's son, by the way. And he had to wear some hair because David Burke had hair. He had to wear lifts because David was tall. And we had this scene where in the empty house where he had to run across the field, and of course, his feet were slipping. So I said, take those lifts out, I'll bend my knees. And that's what we did. And that's how we slipped in. But then we did the empty house a little bit later.
But I mean, in the beginning, where you're reminiscing about, you're explaining to Watson how you came to come out of the cabinet. How did you shoot those scenes with
We shot them in Tatton Hall, Tatton House, Tatton Park. It was when he faints. That scene?
No, where you're telling him about how you came out and you're under the stone and you're watching him come back to the police to look for you.
Oh, that was all in Reichenbach. Oh, no, you're right. No, but they tried to, oh, you're absolutely right. It was Wales. It wasn't the same location. I can't understand. But we're in recession too, remember?
How many setups do you do on an average during the day of shooting?
On average, I would think about 18, 30. Depends. Depends on how we're going. Those very difficult scenes of the introduction of the lady in their lady in distress, they take a lot of time, because anyone who comes in is very nervous. The actresses. And they're terribly difficult scenes to act. The lady who's in distress and needs help from Holmes. And then we go slower then. Sometimes we can speed up. But they're very kind to us. We have time. Just for time. Yes.
Yes, I was wondering, Holmes was the great observer. I was wondering if your power of observation increased.
No. But I have learned why he's so attracted to children. Because children have that same power. And he's got the blessing of a child. He also has women's intuition, which is interesting. Yes.
How much time do you spend on each episode?
Well, they gave me 2 weeks rehearsal, which is very lucky. Many of my fellow Holmeses didn't get that. I really worked at a very fine studio. And the 1 hour films take 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes, I think the Son of Four took 7. That was a 2-hour film. We do 3, then stop. 3, then stop, and that takes a year. That takes a year. Hang on, I'll come back to you. Yes? Yes.
I was wondering, I had the pleasure of doing a telephone interview with you back in 1987, and I asked you about the character, your thoughts about the character at the time. I'm wondering, you said that you didn't. It was for a journal called the Sherlock Holmes Review.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Did I say I wouldn't cross the road to meet him?
Well, you said he was a cold fish and you didn't play him sympathy. And I was wondering, now that you played him for many years since then, I was wondering if your thoughts or feelings about the character have changed since those days.
Yes, you must remember that Holmes wouldn't cross the road to meet me. I think, yes, it has changed. I said to a girl when I was doing the play, she was asking me almost that same question. I said, well, I'm meeting him in the Savoy at 4 o'clock this afternoon for tea. And she mistook me and went to the Savoy herself. Yes, I'm getting on better. I think that probably, I've worked out my little scenario. I've worked out, this is the becoming part, what he was like as a child, how he didn't see his mother until he was 8, maybe he caught a rustle of her skirt and just a touch of her scent. Didn't meet his father probably till he was 16, 17. A Victorian nanny was quite a force, you know, and starched. Probably didn't get much love there either. Rubbed rather severely with carbolic soap. Mycroft also, his older brother, obviously had a very private childhood, gauging his life at the Diogenes Club. I wouldn't have thought it was a very comfortable childhood, and so that's how I've had to build it up. In that, of course, I've gained a lot of sympathy for you. They always say that actors should be in love with the people they're playing. Or some say. In this case, it was not possible. And I was very nervous about that. I learned to like him. Understand him, I hope. A little. He still plays devilish tricks on me.
I follow up with this one. I know that I read somewhere, I haven't seen your play, but I read the book of it, and I know that I read somewhere that you contributed about 7 or 8 hours worth of audio tape observations.
Only the same sort of rabbit that I'm doing now. What I did was to talk to my writer, who I commissioned to write the play in 1987, and I told him all my ideas. And of course the play is largely Doyle. There are 1 or 2 moments, like with Elena Adler, when he says, I caught the fragrance, I could smell the fragrance of her scent. And that's an actual fact because it happened when I was doing Scandal in Bohemia, because Gail Honeycutt, who was playing the part, was wearing blue Belle Penhaligon scent. Well, of course, Holmes was very close to it at that moment when she's bandaging his hair. So that's where that came from, little tiddly bits like that. Trying not, I mean, it's basically the play is Doyle. And we made a mistake in England, I believe, by billing it as a thriller. But it was not, it's a play. It's about two men, one of the greatest friendships in literature. There is no case, it's about them. And I hope when we bring it to this country that it won't be billed that way, because it's misleading. Doug.
In Final Trouble, you used to say one of these curves like it types, but I read somewhere that Sherlock Holmes never smoked.
You're absolutely right. You see, in the Copper Beeches, it says quite clearly, Doyle writes it, that in his disputatious moods, he smokes the long, thin cherry wood. And in his meditative moods, he smokes the broken off clay pipe. And because William Gillette, I think, started the Calabash, the curved one, and I guess he did that all those years ago because it's the pipe that stays alight longest. And the ones that I smoke are time to go out. I mean, Doyle, we must remember, was creating things. I mean, the Persian slipper is not a frightfully good place to put tobacco because it gets dry. So even Doyle was human. And, of course, Gillette was too. But what I did in The Final Problem was to say hello to William Gillette because Holmes is in Switzerland. I thought he might have bought one at the station. That's why I smoked it in there. Yes?
Which, after this is all done, or which prop would you, item or something from the series would you keep for yourself and memorabilia? You like to have?
That's interesting. I have nothing and don't wish to have anything of anything I've ever done. I do have a poster of my Hamlet art, but that's got mildew behind it, so I'm quite pleased. No, but otherwise my home's like a kind of, my home has to be a home. No. I'll give them all away. I'll give one to him. A pipe or two, and him. Yes.
Could you please tell us a bit more about your grand life? You mentioned your home. Where is your home in England?
Yes, I live in the south of London, a place called Clapham Common, and it's very green and lovely. And I live in an eyrie, an eagle's nest. It's 3 top floors of a very old building built in 1864. And on each floor I have a garden. And while I'm away, someone's taking care of my 3 gardens. So I've got them to go back to.
How much time do you spend here?
Here,
In your home?
in my home, as much as I possibly can. There's lots. No, this is not all work. No, I stopped work last December the 12th. And I didn't work again until August. So I got on with my family and hobbies and piano and archery and all that. You got to know my neighborhood. And it's lovely.
Where are your children?
Oh, scattered like chaff. Well, actually, I just had a week with my eldest. He's in California, but he's coming back to England to stay. And he's going to actually, he thinks Europe's the new place to be. I hope he's right. And my daughter's in Boston, so I see her for a week at the moment. And David's with me in London. They're very old and very wise. Much older and much wiser than I am. And I'm treated like a kind of rebellious puppy. Oh, God, he's off again. That kind of thing. Lovely family. Yes. Yes.
You said you played piano. Do you play violin like in the series?
I did, thank God, till I was 10, so I can at least do the bowing, but I can't do this. This I can do. This I die of embarrassment every time I have to do it. They record it, and then I have a terrible moment. And I say, will everyone go away, please? and I'm left alone with the operator and the lighting cameraman. I scratch away, and my bow is, all the rosin is taken off it, so I make no noise at all. And it's so humiliating. But he played the violin, so I've got to have a go at it. I'm much better at chemistry. I keep on love that because it all blows up. I enjoy pretending I can do chemistry. I love the chemistry set. I also use the little bedroom at the back as my own private bedroom in the lunch breaks when we're shooting. I'm talking about Jeremy now because she told me to. And I use that for my little, and sometimes I'm sleeping there, getting ready for the afternoon shoot. And a visiting VIP will wander through and they see this person sleeping on Holmes's bed, and of course it's me. Yes?
Earlier, your total came to 56 stories, but there are also 4 novels. You've done a few of them. Will there be 4 stories you will not do?
Well, I tell you what I think we'll have to try and do is that we must remember that we've just been through the most unbelievable, and are going through the most unbelievable recession in England. I think what we'll do, what we can do, and do remember that I'm also human, and I may have to go away on a walk at the end. It's really a question of now beginning to be the case of me having to pass the torch on to somebody else. Because if we did the study in Scarlet, he really should be 37 and not 55. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I guess we'll go on as long as recession allows. We are in deeper recession than you. I mean, it's really deep. And I think in my profession, there's only about 5% working. So we'll just have to wait and see. Yes?
Actually went into acting. What caused you to go into acting? Did you ever feel that you considered?
Yes, well, I have a great passion for horses. And I wanted to be, well, first of all, a horseman. And I grew to be. And then I wanted to breed horses. But that seemed to me beyond my pocket, and also I didn't have the skill or the knowledge. I was tongue-tied as a child, and as indeed my friend Michael was. But mine wasn't discovered till I was 16. And when my tongue was cut, and I learned how to use it, of course I fell in love with words. And that's really where it started. I also, as a singer, I had a remarkable voice. I know now, because I got recordings of it. I didn't know it at the time. And my uncle was a doctor of music. So music was the other great dream of my life. But when my voice broke, I was never really happy with my voice. I started as a tenor, and it slid, and then kind of became, and I didn't really, I was so happy when I was a soprano, because it was so easy. It suddenly became like hard work, especially in my tenor days. And also I wasn't taken seriously as an actor, because if you sing, you're a singing actor. So I stopped singing. I was happy to. I wanted to be an actor. So that was all right. Yes?
Many an actor portrayed Holmes over the years, Michael Caine, Tom Baker. Back in '82 when the series started, I can only imagine that there were quite a few actors jumping at wanting to do this kind of a role. Did you have this pretty much bagged in the hole in '82 when it started, or were you up against quite a few other actors who wanted to do this?
Well, I suppose what I learned was, in actual fact, the more the merrier. Really. I mean, Charlton Heston was a great friend of mine who's just made The Crucible of Blood, and when he was in England just recently, I sent him a message to the studios where he was doing a television interview, and I said, much love from your ex Watson, the more the merrier, and he said the game's afoot. Tons of love from Chuck, and the more the merrier. Michael Caine was in, and Ben Kingsley were in the next street to me when we were doing the play. Up the road there was Baker Street with Ron Moody singing and dancing. And our business went up, so I think the more the merrier, really. I did feel threatened, I must be true, yes, but not by other people doing it. What I felt threatened by was well, I seriously thought I might never work again. Because you see, if someone puts 40 million on your head, and you lose it, you're not really going to be employed very quickly afterwards. And the top liner always carries the can, we say in our country. And